Hi everyone, this is Diane, and I'm here for another installment of my favorite junk journal supplies. And this category for today is a hard one to do. It is embellishments. There are so many kinds of embellishments you can use. I had a hard time narrowing it down to 12, in fact, or to 10, and in fact I didn't, because I kind of doubled things up into one category. And I have two bonuses instead of one bonus, and even the bonuses are multiple. So you'll see. Let's just go, because we all love embellishments in our journals, and there are just too many to choose from to limit ourselves, right? So my favorite, and I put this at the top, and they're really not in any order, except I put this one at the top because I use it in almost every single journal. Almost, not all of them, but almost. And it is fabric flips. So I have this little candy box that I got at a flea market, and I keep my little fabric flips in here. I will take, I have this big wooden tray that I can put on my lap, and I have scraps of fabric, scraps of lace, I have a pair of scissors and some pins, so I can tear and pin and create these flips out of scraps. So they're pretty hodgepodge. Some are little, I'd call them more like clusters. We're going to talk about clusters too, but they're small and they get bigger. And I don't really have the ones for large journals ready-made. I make them if I'm doing a large journal and I want fabric flips. I will make them at that time, but I don't make them and store them. So these are pretty average size. Some people make them smaller, some people make them bigger. So, and I just use scraps. I try to coordinate them to make them look decent, but it's just fun to use up your scraps this way. So you can see I have quite a few already to go. There's a few more in there. But so fabric flips is number one on my list. I have lots and lots of fabrics to choose from to make my flips. When I am doing a themed journal, like a strawberry journal, I will make flips specifically. I'm trying to say flips specifically. My S's all ran together. But I make them specifically for that journal using my strawberry fabrics and things like that. But I like to have some ready-made for just generic journals. Number two on my list is tabs, because we often use tabs. Now this little vintage recipe box that I got at a flea market is full of little cardstock tabs. Some of them are digitals that I printed and cut out, and I can fold them and put them on a journal. And many of them are punched using my tab punch with paper scraps. And I also have some dies that I can cut tabs with. I got this off of fabric, I think. Yeah, it looks like it came off of some chenille, and it's like a fake leather tab, and it says 1 1/4 yards. But I thought that would be fun to use coming up in a journal. And I also have bread tabs like that. I love it when I find the colored ones. I'm sorry for the blue on my fingers. I'm not even sure where that came from. I'm dumping them out so I can find my colorful bread tabs, because I love using these. I just use Crystal Effects, or what is it called? Crystal Effects is the Stampin' Up! Brand. Glossy Accents, to glue these on. Also, we use, there's another one that came off of fabric. It was upholstery fabric, and I thought I didn't want to throw that away. I will use that. We also use laces, trims, fabrics for tabs, not just cardstock. There's a lot in that little box. Tabs are fun. Number three is eyelets and brads. So I put those two categories together because they're kind of similar, but I do love to use eyelets. I have this in a drawer behind me, and the tools that go with it are in the drawer also. But this box contains all these little boxes with different colors of eyelets in them. And then I have this that has slightly larger eyelets. And I have my brad collection, which also sits in a drawer. I have them pretty well sorted. Some are bigger, fancier, but basically I use pretty traditional eyelets. Brads. I like, you know, the round ones, other shapes, but nothing too outrageous. I do like things like that, but I don't find them all the time. And the little colored ones, and I like the metal ones. Like that one has a number on it. I like those. And this one has slots. You could put a ribbon or something through there. So you can find all kinds of brads, tiny ones and bigger ones. This one is covered with fabric, like a button, a fabric covered button. So eyelets and brads is number 3. I combined 2 for this one also, which is yo-yos and appliques, because a yo-yo is basically an applique, right? So I love to use yo-yos. If you've seen a lot of my videos, you'll know that I like to put yo-yos on my covers quite often. So this is what's left of a quilt, a yo-yo quilt. It was falling apart, it was dirty. I got it at a flea market. I washed it. I sold quite a few pieces of it, and I've used quite a few pieces of it. And then I also have newer ones that I got from Etsy sellers. So I have quite an assortment to choose from. And earlier this year, I went to an estate sale, and the lady had a lot of fabrics, and she also had this bag of fabric yo-yos that are stitched to these petals, these flowers. That's a lot of work, and I got quite a few of them in here, and I was so happy that I was the one that found them, because it's something very unique, and I got these leaves with it. This was the unfinished bits of this project. So yo-yos. And then I also like to use appliques. I was fortunate enough to go to a yard sale probably 3 years ago now, where a lady that I knew her daughter-in-law, she was a crafter, and she did craft shows all the time, and she was selling all of her craft supplies really, really cheap. And I got appliques and sequins and glitter, vintage glitter and sequins from her. This isn't some of her sequins, but I just put it away. But anyway, appliques. These little appliques came from her. They're just little ones in here. I got so many of these appliques that I sold little bags of them in my shop at the time. But the rest, see, I could cut that apart into 2. The rest of them I'm keeping and using them. I also got this bag of slightly larger and smaller. This one's a strip that I could cut apart, and some bigger flowers, all from her. And then I also, later, from someone else, got these. They're kind of appliques, ribbons and little flowers on them, so I like to use them. I found this at a flea market. I got these this year, just a pack of a dozen of these roses. I don't find a lot of appliques. Like that one is something unique. I might have gotten that in a Happy Mail. And when I do, they're not cheap. This was $3. 1960s to 70s velour moon patch. But I had to have that. It's so cute, and it'll make a great accent somewhere. So appliques I like to use. They just add a nice touch. That was number 5. No, that was number 4. Number 5 is clusters, and that can be either fabric clusters or paper clusters. So I have in here some fabric clusters. I make them sometimes while I'm making the fabric flips, I'll take littler pieces and make my clusters. And these are all pinned. They're not sewn yet because I made a whole bunch of them in a day or two, a night or two while I was watching TV, and I just haven't sat down to sew them together. But I have taken some and sewn them to a page as needed. I should sew them all together though, so they're all ready. But that's a lot of fabric clusters that I have all ready to go. And it's just made with scraps of fabrics and scraps of laces and ribbons. So using up your littlest pieces. Some paper clusters that I have are just made with scraps and a little word, and sometimes I use a little bit of lace too. So these are really fun little clusters, and the sky's the limit for these things. Whatever theme, whatever scraps you have, whatever colors. And then I also have some that were, I use my punches on my scraps of paper, and then I will cluster them together and just put a staple through them. So I've got a whole bunch of them, different clusters. And they're fun just to add to a page or to embellish a pocket. Lots of things you can do with fabric clusters and paper clusters. I love using them, and I think most junk journalers love using clusters. Next I have pins. Specifically bulb pins. I like to use the bulb pins. I have some colored ones and some different metallics, but I also have little colored safety pins in here, and these kind of safety pins, some rusty safety pins, and just different types of safety pins. And it's just really fun to add them to fabric elements, and especially if you're going to dangle something off of them, which is what we like to do with the bulb pins a lot of times, is we dangle things from them. Which brings me to the next category, which is beads and charms and buttons. See how I put 3 of them all together in that one? I have a lot of buttons that I use. This is my jar of special buttons. So I haven't in a while, but for a couple of years, if I would find a large assortment of buttons at a good price, I would buy them and sort them. But I haven't in a while because I have so many buttons. But so these are the special ones that are especially decorative and pretty, and I love going through this. I've got to show you this. They're still clustered, sewn together, because I haven't taken them apart to use them yet. I'm hoarding them. Can you see that? It's so pretty. I wish I knew how old it was. And these are still sewn together also. These little pink ones. So I like that someone just put a thread through them to cluster them all together so they wouldn't get lost. But yeah, I love this jar of buttons, but I also have them separated by color into other jars. And my bead collection, this is it. I don't have a lot of beads. I've used up enough that I can buy some more now if I want to. I didn't for a long time because all of these were full. But I've been using them a little bit more. I love the beads. I just don't really enjoy making the bead dangles with them. But I'm going to. I'm going to do that more and put them on my journals more because I love a journal with a bead dangle on it. And I'm making tassels more too. So tassels is another embellishment that I didn't put on my list. And then I have charms too, like the little metal charms that have a different theme. I just used a whole bunch of them for seashore because I had a whole bunch of seashell charms and things like that, so I used a bunch of them. So I do like to use charms and beads and buttons. That was number 7. Number 8 is book corners. I do a lot of journals made with vintage book covers, and often the corners of the book covers are tattered. and so I will put book corners on them. They're similar to the Tim Holtz ones, but I think these are from Amazon because they have the notch in them. I think the Tim Holtz ones just go across. But yeah, I get them from Amazon, but I use these more. I like these brass ones. They're simpler and they're inexpensive. I will try to remember to link that below where I get this, and maybe these if I can find those, because these come in different colors, but I think you could use alcohol inks to color these. But yeah, I just replenished my supply of book corners because I use them quite often. I think I'm going to include this with the book corners, and that is book plates. These are both things that will embellish the front of your cover, and these are Tim Holtz book plates. I grabbed 4 of them and they're all the same, but they do come in different styles, different shapes, but they're ornate like this. In fact, that's what they're called, ornate book plates. And I think you can still get them from Amazon. Okay, that was number 8. Number 9 is a big category, and it's homemade, because I think my favorite thing to use in junk journals is homemade stuff. So I've just recently started making wax seals, and I've been using them in my journals. So that's a homemade thing. I've got a few that are attached to things to create embellishments, but I like to use them. And just take whatever pieces I have and create. This was out of an atlas. It's just a little tag that was made with scraps and a stamp. More stamping here with scraps. Some stamping and die cutting there. But I love to use my stamps to make homemade ephemera. So I've got these pouches here. These are labels that I stamp and cut out. These are words and numbers and things like that. These were a lot of my vintage postal stamps that I got from a flea market, but they came from an old post office. So they're real old, genuine old postal stamps. So I make a lot of ephemera like that. These are definition stamps that I have all stamped and ready to go. Just all kinds of stamps. And I also have die cuts that I cut ahead of time and have in my embellishment stash. So this is why I've been buying some placemats at the flea markets, so I can make some more pouches. So you can see I colored some papers and stamped them. To make embellishments that are all ready to go, or collage fodder as it's sometimes known, because it can go in collages. Some words that I stamped, some phrases and words that are ready. Some little ladies. These are really little. Some Tim Holtz ladies. I think these are from a set called Runway, which I love. And some of the, oh, I forgot what they're called, but I think they're, well, these are Jane Davenport, I think. But I also have some that are made for prayer journals, made from a company that does prayer journal stamps. So my ladies, labels. I'll do a lot of labels, but that's a bonus category that I want to talk about a little bit more. And my die cuts. Can you see all the foliage in there? And some of the die cuts are stamped also. Some more painted pieces and some bigger pieces. So homemade. And of course the clusters are homemade, the fabric flips are homemade, and there are all kinds of other things we can make. I like to make embellishments with my book pages, especially the children's book pages, but lots of other botanical book pages. So just getting illustrations out of book pages to make your own embellishments. That's one of my favorite things to do. And number 10 is numbers and labels. So that should be 2 categories, but it is 1 category because these are 2 of my favorite things. So I have this little container here that's right next to me, and it's got numbers. It's just full of all different kinds of numbers that I just kind of fish through. It's got some stuff in there that doesn't belong, but I fish through this and look for numbers. I use numbers a lot, and some of them are digital. So these I printed digitally. Some are cut from books. Some are cut from scrapbooking paper. Some are stamped. Some are die cut. Some more die cut ones. A lot of them in here are from scrapbook paper. Some are even from magazines. So I just love numbers. And labels I put with it because a lot of the labels have numbers on them, or I combine them anyway. This binder is all labels. Some of them are real, like these vintage ones here. Some are digital. Some are stamped. I stamp words in them, but I love these labels in the back. These are vintage labels that I find at flea markets. Or I don't find them all the time, but I did find these at flea markets once. Found these once, and I found these once separately. But that's not something I find all the time, but I love them, and so I kind of use them sparingly. I have used a lot of these fruit and vegetable ones in my cooking and farmer's market type of journals. And then these are fun. The Fragile, Handle with Care. These are just old Denison type of labels that were in a book. They're perforated and they were in a book that I got, and some of them were stuck together, but I got a lot of them apart. So they're one of my favorite things. So that was number 10, numbers and labels. I also have stamps that I use to make labels. Let me show you. I have this collection of stamps. It makes different sizes of labels, and I love using those. But Tim Holtz has label stamps, and you can find label stamps from all kinds of places now. So I have a bonus. I have 2 bonuses actually. And one of the bonuses is vintage, because you know I go to flea markets all the time, and I find all kinds of vintage items at my flea markets, and I love using the vintage items as ephemera. So I'm just going to talk about some of the small pieces that I get at flea markets. Well, actually I got most of the stuff in here from eBay, because these are not things that I usually find. I have found some like poison labels at a flea market, but I think they're all gone. But that's not something I normally find. But I did get these from eBay, and of course I paid for these quite a bit, but it was a splurge for me, and it was worth it because I just love them. I do kind of hoard them, but I am using them. I just used a bunch of these in a recent journal. So yeah, just labels, all kinds of labels. And this one even has index tabs, which will be great embellishments. So this could be with the tab category too, but these are just a fabric gummed tab, which is awesome. Other things that I get at flea markets that are small are these. I just got these and I soaked them off the pages of a antique scrapbook. So these little antique Victorian pieces are wonderful to use if you can find them. I'll be putting some of my antique pieces in my shop. I don't know if I'll put these in. I get some seals occasionally. Sometimes I find them in the book. I think some of these came out of the Denison book of flower seals, but I poked them out. and some of them I just get in little bags. So those are fun to use. They are vintage. Here's a fun vintage find, and that is just old cellophane tape that comes off of the books and papers that I get at flea markets. This is just one envelope. I've got a drawer of vintage stuff like this. A roll of masking tape that's not sticky at all anymore, but I peel it off and glue it, and I love it. And the insides of book spines, like the webby stuff that you find inside old books when you take them apart. So I have all of that stuff in a drawer. Mailing labels, vintage mailing labels are fun to find. Vintage tickets. More of the vintage gift tags and seals. I think I just got these this year. It's surprising to me how often I find these things. And I got these at a flea market, and these are, I don't know how old they are, but they're like German scrap. So these are the kinds of things I love to find. And then I tend to hoard them, but I do use them. More gift seals, yeah, for packages, gift packages. Play money, and milk bottle caps, and the loyalty stamps, like green stamps and blue stamps. Got a bunch of them. Victorian calling cards. I'm surprised how often I find these too. I have sold them, I have scanned them, so I think I still have these in my shop as digitals, or some sort of things like that. And labels. I found beverage labels earlier this year at a little antique mall. Condensed milk. Even this little sewing machine oil label I got I paid $1 for this little label. I actually think they gave me a discount because I bought so many pancake syrup. That was fun, going through the box and finding these. So all kinds of label-y things, little tags, if you can find tags at a flea market or thrift store. I know I'm fortunate with my flea markets in my area in the Northeast. The Northeast is the oldest part of our country as far as European settlement, so maybe that's why I have so much luck finding old stuff. But I know you all tell me that you don't find things like these in your area. Some of you do, because some of you live in my area, you know, on my side of the country. Yeah, so that's some of the vintage stuff. Was that all I had? Oh, I have these two that are some of the pieces are bigger, but these can still be used as my embellishments, little ID cards, and there's some little stuff in here. But a lot of times I don't know how to categorize my vintage stuff that I find. So I just put it in these two drawers, and when I want something vintage, I just look through these till I find something that works. So vintage items are another favorite thing for me to use. And my other bonus is metal. Some of my metal is vintage and some of it is not vintage. In here I have metal pieces that I bought from Amazon, I believe. I think I looked for brass filigree pieces on Amazon, and I found this collection. All of these came in one collection. All these different shapes, and I think there's 10 of each shape. So there's a lot of pieces. And they're fun to glue to pages. The old jewelry pieces I find, and I like to take them apart and just keep the pieces that I think I will use. This is where some of my charms are. They're not old, but this is old. More jewelry pieces. These are earrings. And I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're going to be fun on a journal cover, I think. some of them. And I do find these at flea markets, these kind of handles. This is a window sash lift. Isn't that pretty? And this was $2.50, and I think this booth was on sale the day I bought it. There's a little latch, and you can find Tim Holtz and other types of metal pieces that aren't vintage. Look at all this fun stuff in here. Metal pieces that I bought at flea markets. Even a stocking garter. This looks like a zipper pull. So I just look for all kinds of fun things like this. I have a bunch of vintage jingle bells in the other room too. So that's metal. So there we go. That was all of my categories, my cheater categories, plus 2 cheater bonuses. I hope you don't mind that I kind of cheated on this one, but you know, my video doesn't specifically say, this series doesn't specifically say it's the top 10 of every category, although that's what I'm trying to stick to. It's my favorites, and there are just too many favorites in my embellishments, so there you go. I had to share them all, and I know this wasn't all of them. I know that there are more, but that's what I had to share with you today. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these fun things that I like to put in my journals. I hope it gave you some ideas, maybe reminded you of some things that you have forgotten to use. I reminded myself of some things that I don't use that much, but they're still my favorites. And let me know things that you use that I didn't touch on today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying this series, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.